Hope you find some kind of peace of mind.
That's right. All right, that's right. I hope you find some kind of peace of mind, because right now it's kind of hard to, with all the events that are going on in Minnesota. The people of Minnesota, sure as hell, I'm sure, do not find any peace of mind during these hard times. Unless you've been living under a rock recently, I'm sure you've heard the news. As early as January 7th, Renee Good killed in Minneapolis. And then just happening a couple of days ago, Alex Pretti also killed and murdered, might I add, in execution-like style in the middle of the streets of Minneapolis. Say what you want. We'll play the video, and we can certainly talk about it in the comments later, or we could talk about it in the comments now if you're watching live with me. But how many more? That's the question that I ask you, the viewer. How many more? How many more civilians do we have to watch, American civilians, might I add, die in the hands of this fascist group running the streets, terrorizing the people? When it first all started, I can easily get behind the idea of taking the worst of the worst off the streets. The drug dealers, the traffickers, the human traffickers. Just the pedophiles, whatever it is, any convicted felons, anybody you could possibly think of that is worthy of taking off the streets and potentially deporting them from the country due to a lack of citizenship. I could get behind that. I don't think there's anybody in this country that wouldn't. Why would you want those types of people here? Why would you want anybody committing any type of, heinous crime here? I sure as hell wouldn't. But it turns out very quickly that none of that was the case. I mean, yes, they did go after those people. And yes, immigration is, at its biggest halt. It's been in a very long time, if ever. There's one thing I can say about that Trump has effectively have done. But at what cost? It's no longer about immigration. You thought it was about race. Turns out it's no longer about race. It's about the political party that you stand with. Me doing this, speaking out against this, is putting me in the category, in the eyes of the Republican Party, as a domestic terrorist. There's no accountability being taken place. Certainly not in the Renee Good murder and the Alex Pretti murder. Again, I'll play the video for you if you haven't seen it. But I'm certainly in Pretti's case, it's evident that they had disarmed him prior to shooting him several times, as if that was fucking necessary at point blank range. I mean, again, it's hard for me to get behind you if you're in favor of ICE, because of just the way they operate. These masked, cowards hiding their identities, certainly not trained. I love the arguments from people that support it, and they're like, don't Don't interfere with an active investigation. What investigation, man? These guys are literally antagonizing the people. They're instigating the issue a lot of the times. They claim that these, Minnesotans, they claim that the Minnesota people, are acting aggressive, rioting, as they damn well should at this point. Fight back for the people. Because I'm sorry, it's unprecedented. It's going beyond immigration. It's going beyond race. These are two, white folk, Renee Good and Alex Pretti. It's so bad it's got me talking about it because I just felt like at some point I couldn't not talk about it anymore. I try to, stay away, on my two podcasts from the whole political aspect of things. It was fun with Trump a little bit for a while there. Certainly during the Epstein files. I don't know why that's fun to talk about, but it's interesting, it's intriguing to me because of what transpired, And what transpired is just lies and lies and lies from this administration. You're seeing it with Kristi Noem. The immediate defense of these actions by ICE, just completely on the side. No, there's nothing to investigate, nothing that, they acted appropriately. That, Alex Pretti had approached them aggressively. It's nonsense, man. This guy was holding up a phone filming them. And they had pushed a woman, and he came to her defense like a fucking human would. Because you got this cowardless, untrained, bitch-ass ICE agent pushing a woman from the back as if that was real. That's part of your training? That shit's necessary? And it's crazy to me, too, because when you see a lot of these scuffles, you could tell they're untrained. When you see you got 5, 6, 7 guys on top of people, especially in this Alex Pretti case. Why did it take so long to stop this dude? You put a knee to the neck. You do whatever it is you got to do to immobilize this man. You zip tie his ass up. There's no way one dude is able to stop the force of 7 trained men. And then even worse, you got caught in plain sight, that you took his gun away from him, which, by the way, was, within legal parameters. He's allowed to have that on him. He wasn't, what's the term, brandishing the gun at the scene, and you take him out anyway. Why not? Same thing with the Renee Good situation. I'm sorry if you're really coming to the defense that she was turning into the motherfucker or actively trying to run him over. You're insane. You're insane. You need to get your eyes checked because it's just not what was happening. That the woman, all right, little, bitchy, kind of comeback at the beginning there of the video where she's kind of giving it to him, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. She's not being aggressive, nothing like that. It was very obvious she was backing up, turning away, and trying to flee the scene. Any proper training would tell you that you don't, unless being actively shot at, you're not shooting at a fleeing vehicle like that, especially not in that situation. And then you got video footage of her, of the ICE agent shooting from the side, just point blank, taking her out. I'm sorry, there's no way that was necessary. And I smile about it because it really bothers me a little, because I otherwise I'll just get upset and, tears will come to my eyes. There's no good reason that two of these people should be dead, all right? And there's no good reason that anybody that has been affected by ICE should be dead. The federal immigration officers have shot 12 people since September, as the Department of Homeland Security has ramped up deportation operations around the country. All right, this coming from NBC News. In the latest shooting on January 24th, obviously, Alex Pretti, just weeks after the fatal shooting of Renee Good. Oh, that's the other way around, actually, but yeah. Both were U.S. citizens and Minneapolis residents, as I mentioned before, obviously. In a majority of the shootings, including Goods, officers have fired into cars, a tactic that law enforcement authorities and policing experts have been trying for decades to curtail. The vehicle shootings raised serious concerns among policing experts about the rapidly expanding deployment of DHS personnel into American communities, where officers are regularly captured on video clashing with immigrants who are in the country illegally, as well as citizens who protest their arrest. And it's more than just that. And thank you, NBC News, for that. Let me actually pop up that list for you that I'm looking at right now. These are the 12 people that have been in altercations with ICE, and the timeline to boot, going back to September. Now January 26th, as we have it now. The mayor in Minneapolis did deploy the National Guard, finally, their own. I don't know how that may change things going forward, but it certainly feels like with Alex Pretti's death here that this is a bit of a tipping point in the whole scenario, and that's why it's led me to come on here and doing this. And mainly because, I give a shit. I give a shit because this is not how you go about things, and the resemblance of this reminds me of the Nazi Party. This is Gestapo in modern day. We have to be careful and not be on the wrong side of history here. We have to take a different approach. Some of the tactics by ICE, using children to, take away their parents, going to their schools, even going so far to the situation where, ICE agents are showing up at, ceremony procedures in order to complete their immigration status. Showing up at courthouses when they have a court date. Maybe they have asylum and all that. They're showing up, they're doing the right thing, they're taking the proper steps to becoming an American citizen, and you're just plucking them. And these are not the worst of the worst. ICE is clearly filling a quota. Curtis Sliwa, the mayor candidate here in New York, was just interviewed saying how he has former guys that used to work for him that now work for ICE. And they told him that they have a certain quota to meet. And in order to meet that quota, they're picking up just about anybody at this point. And it's, there's no way to operate. There's no way to be. It's become a game to them. It's a job to them. And they've been given full autonomy to do anything they want, along with the amount of funding they want. 7 House Democrats just passed, a bill. Still has to go through the proper channels, but just voted for a bill that would fund ICE even more. I believe upwards of $60 billion. I if I'm remembering correctly. Even if that number is less, because that's absurd. That's an absurd amount of money. Even if it was, 60 million. Why? As if they need more resources, as if they need to do more. What's the plan here? Where are we going with this? How far is this going to go? How many, again, I asked the question like I asked it before, how many people have to die before it's just anarchy? What's the end game here? You're just gonna have no diversity. It's just all it's all white Americans in this country, as if that or just Republican white Americans. Because it seems like we're constantly on the attack with the Democrats and side of things. I mean, these issues only seem to happen in states that are traditionally blue. Houston and Miami, largest population of immigrants in the country. And yet none of this shit is taking place like it is in some of the Democratic states. I fear that here in New York, that time is coming as well. I mean, it's not like it hasn't already come. There's been protests. There's been, ICE all over. I've seen them. Seen them on the highway driving like dicks. Swerving in and out for no good reason. For what? Where they going? What they doing? But what's going on in Minnesota right now is just... I feel for them. I hope that it ends. I'm going to show you guys video footage. Again, just fair warning. All right, this is very graphic. Please, if you want, you can mute it, turn away, you can skip it if you need to. Obviously not right now as I'm recording live, but if you're watching in post, please feel free. If you just don't want to watch it, I get it. Skip ahead a little. But if you haven't, it's very graphic. This footage is from the lady, quote unquote, lady in pink. All right, this is, it says January 23rd, but it was January 24th for Alex Pretti's murder by ICE. You be the judge. Let me know in the comments. I'm willing to hear you out where you're coming from all sides, but I will tell you this. I've seen what I've seen, and I'm not here to change my position on that. That's not... I'll hear if you do oppose it and you do think it's justified, by all means, explain away. Try to. I might entertain it, I might not. But I don't care what you say, something needs to change. At this point, we are just picking people off the street, saying, and not even asking questions. You gotta carry around birth certificate, passport, whatever it is. That's the type of shit Gestapo did, man. We're gonna just at some point we're just gonna put badges on us so we know we could pick out the immigrants, or we could Like, what are we doing? This is inhumane. This is not how you clean up a country, man. And it's all funny. It's all such a show, man, because, you see this shit with Ryan Wedding recently. I've talked about it with Dubby on Epis Sports. And yes, by the way, I do have the sports ticker here, and it looks like the similar sports stuff because we are a sports podcast as well. And, we've talked about the politics and the news on the sports podcast, before. And, on Mental Mondays, this ties into mental health, very much so. So you could tell me to shut up and dribble, or you can watch and either be entertained or be pissed off about it. Your choice. But either way, I try to be understanding as possible as long as appropriate, but I tell you, man, it's something that's bothered me. But let's get to the video. We'll get on with the discussion. So here's the footage from the lady in pink. This is the Alex Pretti murder. Okay.
Go.
There's Alex Pretti right there. You can see he's holding up his phone. The woman gets pushed. Pretti kind of, like, what the hell? And immediately gets pepper sprayed. You've already pepper sprayed the shit out this man. He's trying to help the woman. He doesn't want to let go. And then now you see the agents take him down. There's a scuffle. You got 4 guys on top of him. 5, 6 around him. Total. There's another video. I'm going to see if I can find it for you as well. It's a little bit of a close-up, different perspective of one of the ICE agents taking away the gun and running away with it. You could see him bend down in part of the scuffle. And you see him in slow frame run away with the gun in his hand, which he did not have before, and it did not come from his own holster or anything like that.
Come on. Oh my God, you fucking people, man. You're fucking killing us. Why would you do that?
Nah, man, it just...
Oh my God,
oh my God.
I can't believe I'm seeing this.
Let me get a refresh here for you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me figure that out real quick. Oh, this is another one. I'll show you this, actually. And we could maybe revisit, or probably don't have to, but...
2 minutes before the shooting, Alex Pretti is seen arguing with officers. One officer pushes him back, and an individual is detained as Pretti's argument with officers continues. Pretti, holding a cell phone, was allegedly there as an observer to document what was happening. About a minute later, Pretti is seen standing in the street, filming, directing a car past him. An officer then approaches another apparent observer and pushes her. She moves to Pretti and holds him by the waist, and the officer approaches and pushes Pretti. A second woman walks over. The officer pushes her to the ground, then sprays Pretti with a chemical irritant. Pretti raises his hands to block the spray. Pretti and the first woman then move to assist the woman who is knocked down, and the officer continues to spray. Several more officers arrive and drag Pretti onto the ground. An officer in gray reaches into the struggle and comes out holding a gun that appears to match a photo of a gun released by the Department of Homeland Security. In this video, obtained by CBS News, you can clearly see the gun being removed from Pretti's waist by the officer. The first shot is fired about 1 second later. Slowed to a quarter speed, you can see and hear how quickly the shot follows the gun's removal. In another angle, you can see an agent watch as the gun is removed from Pretti's waistband before the agent pulls his own gun and fires at the kneeling Pretti. The officers move away from Pretti as at least one of them continues to fire. Pretti does not appear to be moving. Around 10 shots are fired in total by law enforcement. After approximately 45 seconds, at least one officer eventually moves in and kneels next to Pretti. About 2 minutes before...
So, there you go. I really don't want to actually play that again. Come to think of it. That's enough. And again, I'm sure, if you haven't seen it, you could... you can play this back, or you can check it out for yourself online. It's all over the internet. I suppose I could, also play the Renee Good, but it's like, do I really need to break it down as if it's some sort of like play-by-play of, I mean, that's what we do, right? That's what we're going based on. That's what it is. That's what the argument is. But why? That's the part that I don't quite understand a little, is why is that the argument? Why is not there needs to be, more sophisticated movement, better training amongst this agency in ICE. This, this reeks of just, security guards playing, cop, it's good old patriots. I'm sure majority of them, all the patriots are out there just having fun. Nice little $50,000 bonus that they get in increments. Have to pay taxes on, the whole nine, still get fucked. It's like a game to them, man. And like what tactic? What is that in terms of pushing Alex Pretti, that other woman, that other bystander, out the way? Where did you learn that? Even if you are actual like federal agents, you're well trained, years and things like that. There's no way, man. There's no way that's a necessary tactic. There's got to be a better way than that. That just seems cowardless. It seems like you're instigating at some point. I don't know. No, I've never been in military. I've never, trained in any law enforcement, nothing of the like. So I can't speak for it, but I certainly have worked alongside these fellas before. I've seen some of the shit that, cops have to handle on a daily basis. I understand the importance of law enforcement. I also understand the importance of the right to bear arms, which, last time I checked, the Republican Party is all about that. When that boy Kyle Rittenhouse showed up to that, protest or riot, with that, whatever the fuck it was, that rifle in his hand. Looked like a damn machine gun. It was, so damn big. Y'all called him a hero. That's right. He's a true patriot. In hand, brandished, as they would say. But my man, Alex Pretti, rest in peace, who's an ICU nurse, by the way, that worked at a VA hospital, that took care of veterans, cared for them deeply. See clips, looked like the man loved his job. I could tell a nurse that cares about his fucking job, he looked like one of them. Clearly, the man's out there in the streets protesting, believing in, for the people. You think these people want to be out there doing this shit? You think they're just rioting to riot? If it was really just about immigrants and pedophiles and just criminals straight up, murderers, drug dealers, traffickers, whatever, just doesn't matter. If it was really about getting those types of people off the street, then you wouldn't have a regular American citizens out there fighting for a cause either. I'm sorry, you just wouldn't. I had to come on here and I had to talk about it. I did, and I was hesitant, and is a reason why, I didn't, come on here so far. This is the first Mental Mondays, if I'm not wrong, of the new year. And it took a month to do it. A lot of stuff has been going on, as I shown you that a little graph earlier with the timeline of Vice, and it's kind of weighed heavily on me. And, at some point I had to have a conversation with myself and say, well, enough is enough. How long am I just going to, shut up and dribble, essentially, as they say, and listen, if it means, you disagree with me and, you're all right, you want to unsubscribe, you want to, no longer follow me, then so be it. I could care less. I stand with my people. I have to believe that we are of the majority. There's a lot of noise on social media it weighs so heavily on my mind. And I know there's some people out there that feel it too. I know there's some people that understand and feel what I'm feeling. And it's troubling, to say the least, because the voice of the Republican Party and what we see from our political leaders, especially those that are in, control of the White House right now. The rhetoric is so hateful. It's hypocritical because Trump would tell you otherwise and say that the far left rhetoric is also very hateful and detrimental, to the whole, well-being of the country. And it's just so not the case. I'm not over here saying, oh, the Democratic Party is, amazing and just perfect and all that. When it comes down to it, for those that may be interested, not that anybody really cares, but I'm Democratic by fault, I'm really an independent. I'm willing to, hear and understand both sides. But I think, a lot of my views do align more with the Democratic Party, no doubt. But, I can understand, some Republican views as well. I try to be fair, but hey, I'd definitely be viewed and pegged, as a, probably far left extremist domestic terrorist after this episode. So be it, I guess. When you got a title in Mental Mondays with Epis, Abolish ICE, which, by the way, I didn't put the episode number up, but when I have the YouTube up, I'll make sure I have the right one there. Let me wet the palate a little bit. If you're watching right now live with me, please, if you have something to say, you need to get something off your chest about this whole situation, drop it in the comments, let me know. If you're watching in post, do the same. Let's have a discussion, but at the same time, let's keep it cordial. I can't, entertain nonsense at times. So, but hey, I know, it's probably going to invite a lot of people to say a lot of things. And I understand it's a crazy time either way you see it. It is a Mental Monday. Happy Mental Monday. Thank you, for watching. I appreciate it as always. It's good to be back. It's good to be back behind the screen despite, having to talk about this. And again, as I just mentioned before, it's definitely something that, is been difficult to want to talk about. But with the recent murder of Alex Pretti, I just, I've really felt like I needed to talk about it because, for my own sanity and just, well-being. Otherwise, I just felt like I couldn't go on. I couldn't, talk about sports as I would like to and things like that. It didn't sit right with me. And, I was kind of putting it off. I did a couple of sports shows in the meantime. Didn't really, bring it up. I know, my co-host on the sports show, W. Dubois, he's felt it. He's felt it his whole life, and, being a Haitian, Black American, it's, my man has certainly, and a veteran of all things, my man has certainly experienced and seen a lot of things, and oppression is one of them. And I noticed this, it hurts to see, and, it hurts anybody that's just, we're all just trying to just live and be out here, man, exist and be accepted. And this is that type of shit that, creates that divisiveness. Trump want to talk all that nonsense of unity and just, make America great again. For who? For who exactly? I always hated that slogan. It was the word it was hate from the get-go. And the red behind it, man, is out for blood, these people. But I had to get on here. I had to get a talk about it, and it feels good about it. And I hope you enjoy the episode. It's not something, unfortunately, that will make you laugh or anything. It's serious. It's uncomfortable, but I think it's necessary. And I think, I have a platform. I have a voice. Only be right that I actually use it. And I gotta say, I already, feel better having done so. Man, I'm looking at some of the videos that I have, and I could just literally example after example after example, just point out some things with ICE that is troublesome, to say the least, Shit, how about this one? Just one more. Okay, just because this is a little interesting. Just one more to just give you a little bit more insight of what the hell's going on. Just trying to understand it all. All right. I'm not even going to premise it. Here you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Ruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from any of us today is rhetoric of abolish ICE or that there shouldn't be immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop. Good morning, everyone.
All right, well,
I'm Mark.
That was a lot. in there, but action packed. And again, this chief is explaining how some of his off duty police officers were specifically targeted, and how he knows that and understands that, and how they, some of these off-duty officers understand is because they're trained in that way. They're trained to understand those types of situations and know what it looks like to be targeting people, and for it to be happening multiple times, several times, whatever the number may be, seems to be a lot based on this chief's account. It has them concerned. It has them speaking out. The Minnesota Police, Department. I mean, that's where we're at. You got the local police department speaking out against ISIS, and to his credit, he did say this is not about abolish ICE, so he's certainly not in favor of what I am, which I am, 110%. The streets, I'm sorry, were a lot better before they hit the streets. I'll put that out there. It could have been handled much differently, or much more efficiently in that case. And it doesn't seem like I have much trust in this agency at this point, especially when you see them voting for more funding. It gives me no reason to believe that what we are seeing now is going to stop unless we all band together and stop it. And that's my fear. It's my fear for me, for my children, for my wife, Asian American, who, has been targeted before. How many more? That's what I ask you. How many more civilians have to die before you all wake up and realize that, maybe this is not the answer? You're seeing representatives from the Republican Party speak out against it. I mean, this is The Apprentice we're talking about. Murdering his own civilians. He never cared about you before, and certainly doesn't give a shit about you now. If it was about Americans, if it was about immigrants, and why is this happening? These are American citizens that are being tortured, demonized, and being antagonized into a very dangerous situation that they didn't ask for, mind you. What's the overall agenda? I don't know. Where does this lead? I don't know. And where does this lead for me here on Epis? I also don't know. Because I want to continue to do this, and I want to continue to do this show. And I want to talk about, certain things, and here on the Mental Mondays, and want to talk about my sports. But it seems that every day, with each passing bit of news, that it seems all but less significant than what it was to me before. It's like experiencing the burnout without the burnout, whereas, like before, it's like, okay, I'm just, a bit exhausted from all the noise, but now it's draining. It's exhausting in that sense, mentally and physically, and maybe more of this will be nice for me too, but to at least, have a outlet to get it off my chest, whether you guys are listening or not. But it's certainly not the direction I had foreseen my show going. And then, hey, hopefully, this time next week, I don't have much to say, which that's probably won't be the case. And that's just how it's been going. But again, this show has always inherently been about mental health, and this is where my mental health lies, because this is what I think about because of my situation, having kids, a wife, living in a blue state. It's crazy. When I was a kid, I could care less about politics, right? You don't give a shit about what's going on. Well, at least most kids, I would say. Definitely, those kids, that were tuned in. But it was almost as if, like, the politics outside, at least for me, grew up in a very privileged, background. I mean, middle class, Queens, white part of Queens. I was very privileged. I was very, fortunate to grow up in the home that I did with the family that I did, and although they had their flaws, but Maddie wasn't complaining. Maybe he was as a kid, didn't understand what he had, and then sure. But me, the adult, I'm not complaining, now. Because I have a better understanding, because I was living in some sort of fantasy, that fantasy that they talk about, making America great again. And here I am, 15, 20 years later, talking about something that I, back then just didn't really care about. Because it matters, man. And I could sure as hell never dream that I'd be talking about this. A party that resembles the very own Nazi party right in my backyard, essentially. Where do we go from here? What's the end game for you guys? That's all I have to ask. Renee Good, and I'll leave you guys with this, and Alex Pretti. Should be alive today. Renee Good and Alex Pretti should be alive today. It was not their fault. For losing their lives at the hands of these cowards. They were good-hearted people. I just wanted to see some change. Everybody, I hope you can find some peace of mind. Understand that this too shall pass. We hope for a better tomorrow. We hope for a greater America. For all our sake. An America in which immigrants and non-immigrants can coincide. And live as one. And if that's not the America you want to live in, too damn bad. Abolish ICE. And keep showing up.
Hope you find some kind of peace of mind. And hope you find some kind of peace of mind.
Was true. Is my love. Is my
Hope you find some kind of peace of mind.
Thank you for watching today's video. If you like this video or you're interested in future content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And as always, keep showing up.